Hey everybody, this is Mike with On Point Preparedness doing a live stream tonight. Actually, haven't done one in a couple weeks, but it is with a longtime friend and guest that I've had on the show. I think, Tony, this is your third time. That would be Tony from the A Minute to Midnight YouTube channel. Why don't you go ahead and say hi to everybody?
Hi there. Yes, you've been on my show and I've been on yours. So yeah, it's a really good little arrangement. I really enjoy catching up with you. And it's good to be chatting to everyone that's in your audience.
Yep. And me and Tony, we always hit it off real well. We have a lot of the same views on the times that we're in and everything. And at the bottom of the screen in the YouTube description box, I've got a link to Tony's channel. So if you want to go ahead and subscribe over to his channel, he's got a ton of great interviews with folks. I think Tony, that's primarily most all of your videos, right? Are interviews, and then sometimes you'll have some interjections just with you and your team members.
Yeah, and there's some just HD videos which I've done like a series on the New World Order in 2018. So that's just me, and that's HD videos, and I definitely suggest to people to check those out. They've been pretty popular, but most of the videos are guest interviews, but there are probably a dozen or so other videos as well. So.
Yeah. So we were gonna just we didn't necessarily have a set topic today, mostly because there is so much going on in the world. Me and Tony were talking before the actual broadcast. We said, you know what? Let's just flow with this because there's so many things going on in the geopolitical world, talking about Israel and Iran and Syria and Russia and the Korea peace that is supposedly going to happen, not to mention the upcoming Trump and Kim meeting. I think that's set for sometime in mid-June. And then you've got lots of occult symbolism with what I have on the screen. I'm going to show you some pictures which you may not have seen about the Met Gala. And then Tony has some topics as well where we want to go back into the AI slash cryptocurrency realm. So Tony's been doing a lot of interviews with financial analysts and such. The last one he posted with Lynette Zhang was an excellent one, just talking about the coming economic crash. It's something that I think everyone needs to be aware about because it's very, very soon, we believe. But we'll just roll with this for the next hour, and we're going to hit up as many topics as we can. But let's go ahead and start with this one. Tony, I believe so. One of your team members, Brooke, she's going to be doing an article on all the symbolism within these pictures. Is that right?
Yeah, Brooke actually snapped a whole lot of pictures herself. She went through and watched the whole thing, and she snapped pictures and done zooms on a lot of the things on the costumes and that. And she's going to be putting an article on our website, AMinutetoMidnite.com, hopefully fairly well. I don't know if it'll be today, hopefully within the next day or two. She's pretty much onto it with that.
Yep, and you can see, lots of people are talking about this gala, and it's even on the mainstream media, right? So Fox News and CNN. There was a big outcry from a lot of Catholics, a lot of Christians that this was just absolutely blasphemous. It was out of taste. And they couldn't believe that a lot of Catholic priests went along with this. I believe, oh, where's Rihanna? She's down in here somewhere. I believe, what was it? One of the cardinals actually gave his hat to her. Wasn't that right? Or do you recall that?
I'm not sure how about the giving of the hat, but I know Cardinal Timothy Dolan was there, and he was snapped with George Clooney,
Oh
at
yeah,
the
I saw that one.
$30,000 a head elitist event.
And Nolan was the one, right? That was at that one prayer breakfast or dinner where he gave Trump that little nudge right before he won the election, right?
Yeah, with Hillary Clinton there
Yeah.
as well, and Henry Kissinger sort of conveniently, perched between them and behind.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, the same guy.
And so, this whole gala is just absolutely insane. One of the things I thought about, so before I was saved, and I'd watch a lot of these movies like The Fifth Element, or if you've watched The Hunger Games, they have views of this utopian society that's just extravagant, where they have these crazy costumes. Everyone's just well outdone themselves in terms of looking normal. They're just completely abnormal. And I really couldn't imagine that in today's society, but I have been proven wrong time and time again.
Well, actually,
Hollywood. Oh, go ahead.
to be honest, Mike, you're just mentioning that. If I get a chance, I want to share a bit about Saudi Arabia and what's happening there because that is the vision of Mohammed bin Salman, pretty much what you were just talking about.
Right, these dystopian futures with this
Yeah,
elite society that has,
yeah,
these really extravagant costumes and such. But yeah, this is just stunning to me, the whole entire event. And I think what Brooke's going to do, and you can see here, there's a lot of, obviously, this one on the left hand side, phallic imagery. Um, there's just really dark imagery. So you see here, I forget her name. Doesn't even matter to me, but her and Madonna and so many others have this almost like death appearance to them.
mm,
You've got, oh, what was that? The Handmaid's Tale. You have a lot of that symbolism in here. But with any one of these, you just have this Antichrist inspired imagery in all of these photographs. I know a lot of the people have probably seen the costumes that individuals have worn, but I don't know if anyone's seen all the different displays that they had. So it was almost like a museum. And I'm showing some of them here that I got pulled from Facebook. But this is just such an incredibly crazy, just elite cult society. All the people who are in the know were at this thing, and this was their time to show off. And like, here we go, Jennifer Lopez. It's just, I don't know, it's just so difficult to digest, just seeing this all out in the open. Actually, one of my last videos, and I should pull this up here. Tony, did you see my video on um, Katy Perry speaking at the Vatican?
I don't know if I've seen that one
Oh,
actually.
here, hold on. And actually, anyone that hasn't seen this, this will be interesting for you all. So again, how we're just talking about this is absolutely nuts that the Catholics would approve of this
Yeah,
event. But if we take a look at this, let me just pull this up on the screen here. This is a video I did. Let's see here, May 4th, and
oh
it's
yeah,
it,
I did see it. Yes,
yeah, it's not shocking to me anymore because it just sort of is what it is. We're in the time that we're in. But I guess what's shocking to me is more so how this is brazen. This is all out in the open. They're no longer being savvy about, hiding things. They're almost putting me out of a job, right? I don't need to I don't need to decode occult symbolism
mm,
anymore. It's not hidden. It's all out in the open. But
mm,
yeah, this right here, I found this really hard to believe. I almost thought it was fake news when I first saw it.
yeah, yeah.
But Katy Perry spoke at the Vatican. They had Deepak Chopra, all these new age
That's right.
gurus
Yeah, yeah,
talking at this event. And then to some of the participants, they actually handed out these Alex and Ani bracelets, which, I mean, look for yourself, right? It's the all-seeing eye. It's the eye of Osiris with the backdrop here behind the bracelets. But this is what's being handed out at the Vatican. And then you've got these Hollywood events being intertwined with Catholicism. Me and Tony, we really believe that the Vatican, or at least the people that are running it, definitely have some part to play in the one world Babylonian religion. Don't know if
yeah,
it will necessarily be called Catholicism, but you can see that in almost every area of our social lives, whether it's Hollywood or music videos or all these actors and actresses, I mean, there really is a promotion of Catholicism. Would you agree?
oh yeah, but I also think there's the opposite. There's the black mass kind of the dark side as well. You've got the sort of the supposedly like light side of the Vatican, then you've got this black mass dark side. Yeah, the opposites, which I think is very much a part and parcel of the Babylonian religion.
Yeah.
Because that's the way they believe, as above, so below, kind of thing. So you've got that kind of blend of the supposedly pure and the dark and occultic, and which is a total hallmark of, I think, the Luciferian religion that will eventually arise out of all of this.
That's a good point because let me show two images here, the blending of the light and the dark. So, maybe three images here. So, this first one with Kim Kardashian is against this mummy tomb. And this is at the Catholic/Met Gala event. They're blending ancient Egypt with the
Yeah,
Roman Catholicism inspirations. And I did a video. Let's see here. When was this one? This was back on March 11th. And I showed you this is called the gestatorial throne that the
yeah,
Pope used to be carried on. And obviously, I think it was maybe
That video was a real eye opener to me.
oh yeah, and this is so they used to carry the Pope, 12 men representing the 12 apostles. They used to carry the Pope on this throne, but I think people started to get a little bit wise and say that it's not right for them to be carrying, the man who's supposedly the vicar of Christ on this throne. But I found this picture here, and you'll see this is Pharaoh being carried
Yeah,
on a throne. And even down to the fans that are on the left and right side
yeah,
of the Pope, the fans in ancient Egypt were constructed of ostrich feathers, and so too were the fans that surrounded the Pope. And so even the Egyptian princess here, you can see the ostrich feather fans. And it's just self glorification, right? I mean, this is actual images from some of the prior popes, standing on this throne and all the people worshiping this man. And so the Vatican is definitely merging, the black magic and, sort of tainting it, or it's basically tainting things that are biblical with like lots of black magic and dark things. And that's exactly what they're doing in this event here. You've got the Pharaoh imagery here. If I scroll down a little bit more, I mean, there you go. They had a
yeah,
runway where, they have this King Tut type inspiration. So the whole thing's crazy. Yeah, let's
yep,
see. But yeah,
definitely.
I'll be
Yeah,
looking forward to Brooke's article because she's going to go through, I think, costume by costume and, maybe look at some of um, the symbolism within each of these. But just the event itself is more than indicative of, where we're at in these times. And there you go, the queen herself, Madonna, which I believe she played like a prayer at at the gala too, right?
I didn't see it, but okay, yeah, that's interesting.
Yep. Nicki Minaj, that's her name. That one
Uh-huh.
that I forgot there. Anywho, yeah, there's lots of videos out there right now, but I could not believe this when I first saw it.
Yeah, it's pretty out there, especially. Yeah, I mean, it just shows you how dysfunctional the whole thing is. These elitists, the people that everyone look up to, as idolize them, and to me, they're the most pitiful in many ways.
Yep. Man, I mean, just even if
It's
you watch the let's see, the Vigilant Citizen, his website, he always has
yeah,
symbolic picks of the month. All these models, runway models, everyone's just starting to look like death. In fact, there's some that are carrying decapitated heads. I saw. I mean, just flat out death, and they're promoting cannibalism, and again, all this black magic and witchcraft. It's just I cannot believe how fast things are going.
yeah, absolutely.
Anywho, let's go ahead and switch gears because this is self-explanatory. It speaks for itself, the time that we're in. But we'll go ahead and switch over to perhaps the interview you just did with Lynette Zhang. Could you tell everyone a little bit about who she is and why you had her on the show and maybe what she had to tell everyone?
Well, Lynette Zhang is works for ITM Trading, is the company she works for, and she's been involved in the financial world since the 1960s, 1964, I think. She said, and yeah, and she's so knowledgeable, but she brought out a lot of very important stuff. I thought in the interview. I just put the interview out, about 12 hours ago or something, and she details a lot about what's happening with the blockchain 3, which is the technology used by AC Chain and AC Coin, and what it means, how it's going to be tied into be an SDR, which is a special drawing rights to be probably the global currency, reserve currency at some point. Yeah, that's that AC Chain. So we talked about that, and also about what she's discovered in the banking, what's going to be happening with the LIBORs, which is the interbank lending, which is going to be all changed and set into place by 2021. She pulled out some really interesting facts on that, which the gist of the interview, without kind of divulging into it too much, is that people need to be prepared, because things are going to change, and they've got to be in place by 2021, basically. And it's kind of it's pretty important to be prepared now as to what is gonna happen, because if you take a look at, say, Argentina and Venezuela at the moment, in the situation, what's happened with their currencies and the collapse there, if they had have known what was coming, how differently they would have lived
Oh yeah.
than what they did, and everything is basically comes back to being measured against gold. But with this AC chain, you end up with a whole different level again, because they have. Oh, I will just quote Serena Lynn, who was a spokesman or spokesperson for AC Chain, who is the issuer of AC Coin. AC Coin is perhaps the best kept secret in the digital world, suggests Lynn, representing years of work initiated even before the launch of Bitcoin. AC Coin was designed and configured, complete with its own ecosystem, to be the premier anchoring or digitizing token on the planet, and so on. So these people have set this in motion, and I believe probably the Rothschilds are in behind it. The Chinese are big players in it. There's a couple of Brits who are big players in this as well, in what's called IDEX, which is International Digital Assets Council, Exchange Council, and they're both worked for the British government. Well, one of them, Eric van der Cleege, is worked for David Cameron, who was Prime Minister of the UK, and David White. He worked for the Royal Bank of Scotland as the head of technology innovation, and they're really big into the whole AI thing. And as you can see from what Mike's playing there, the whole idea is to have this AC chain become the anchoring stone for all other digital currencies,
Yeah.
and basically tangible assets being drawn into the system. So I think it's something to watch extremely closely, because according to Lynette, they are looking to put a whole new system into place because the current world financial system is falling apart. And so she brings out a bunch of reasons as to what's going on, and why you need to, well, look at precious metals and things like that. So I would definitely suggest listening to Lynette in that interview, because she will explain it far better than I can.
And you know what's shocking for me is that I remember when you first told me about AC Chain, it was maybe about a month ago,
Mm,
and I had never heard about it.
yep.
And I think largely, maybe most of my audience hasn't heard about it, and really the world hasn't heard about it. We've heard of Ethereum, we've heard of Bitcoin, we've heard of cryptocurrency in general, but AC Chain, I don't think a lot of people know about. And I remember when you sent me the AC Chain YouTube site, I mean, just take a look at it. Subscriptions, 1.6 thousand people subscribed. Not a lot. This video, a decent amount, almost 200,000 views. But I honestly haven't seen a whole lot of people talking about AC Chain as a contender, as a cryptocurrency. And what I thought was interesting that Lynette talked about, and you mentioned as well, was one, this AC Chain cryptocurrency is, I guess, fully convertible to all the other cryptocurrencies, right? And that it's directly linked to the IMF standard drawing rights. And I think that's am I correct in saying that this is
Well,
the only cryptocurrency that's
yeah,
somehow linked to SDR and convertible to SDR?
yeah. Yep. So it's still in the developmental stage, from my understanding, and looking at the website um, of the IDEX as well. You know, but the thing is, there's big players behind it, and IDEX, that was actually launched at Davos this year, and AC Chain was launched at the end of last year. And they touted it as a fulfillment of the Rothschilds' 1988 Economist magazine cover, talking about a global currency arising around 2018. And look, I'd say we need to watch this real closely. I'm not saying it is the mark of the beast currency, but it may be, or it could be the forerunner for it. But they're looking, to put the systems into place to control the whole of the cryptocurrency world and everything else, from my understanding of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and this definitely has tons of occult symbolism. So I was showing people the video here, and you can see they've got the phoenix,
Yep.
rising out. And just as Tony said, they say that this AC chain is the fulfillment of the 1988 Economist magazine cover, which said that in 2018 there would be a one world currency. I think it's coming up, right here in this video. So there we go. They're saying that, yeah, this is the fulfillment of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, big players involved, lots of occult symbolism. It's got a direct linkage to the International Monetary Fund's standard drawing rights, SDR, which a lot of people were saying would somehow be tied into this one world currency system. But I think one thing is for certain is that the world's going to go cashless, and it's going to be some type of cryptocurrency, because I think the Antichrist spirit really uses technology to its advantage, and it needs this. And as we talk about just how everything is going digital, and we think about Venezuela and other countries that are sort of the forerunners to all this, Maduro was talking about, or he already implemented, right, some type of digital currency there.
Mm.
So we already see what's happening with, again, these forerunners, these countries that are already sort of in the thick of it, while we're sort of waiting our turn.
Yeah, there's another video too on that AC Chain channel, which has, something about the devil destroys the world, and then the God, I can't remember, what does it say now? The God recreates it, or something along those lines.
Oh,
So
geez.
yeah, it's another one of their short videos on their channel.
They
Um,
don't have too many here. It looks
no, um,
15,
yeah, I
16, 16 videos.
can't remember exactly which of the videos it is. I've got screenshots from it. Anyway, with a guy running through the pyramid, and it shows you a timeline of events. But the fact of the matter is that they claim that they had this, concept, before Bitcoin ever existed. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's something to watch. I definitely think it's something to watch anyway.
And like you said, yeah, it's just all opinion, but I do really think that some type of cryptocurrency is going to be, the currency of the beast system, and that it's going to be digital, and that's how they're going to control everything, the ability to buy and sell. So it may be this, it may, maybe the components or infrastructure of this is what's used to facilitate this monetary system, but it's called something different. I think what you said in the beginning here is people need to get into hard assets.
Yeah.
If you're not going to be part of the beast system, you're going to have food and water and shelter and all these things that we talk about with preparedness.
Well, and basically, Lynette in that video explained why you will really want to own gold or silver, pretty well in detail in the video, the interview I just put out. So I definitely recommend listening to it. Just changing tack a little bit, but on it's sort of not completely off the track. I just want to, as we're looking about the artificial intelligence and all of these things, Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia. I'm watching this guy really closely, and I don't know how many people are aware of NEOM, the $500 billion city that they're building.
Yeah, let me pull it up
And
right
here's
here.
a quote from Mohammed bin Salman, okay? He said this: "We want the main robot and the first robot in NEOM to be NEOM itself, robot number one. Everything will have a link to artificial intelligence, to the Internet of Things, everything. Your medical file will be connected with your home supply, with your car, linked to your family, linked to your other files, and the system develops itself and how to provide you with better things. Today, all the clouds available are separate. The car is by itself, the Apple Watch by itself, everything by itself. There, talking about a NEOM, everything will be connected. So nobody can live in NEOM without the NEOM application we'll have, and so on. And this is a grandiose project that's meant to be 10 times bigger than New York. if it goes ahead, this is massive, and it appears that it is well on the way to going ahead. There's been some update, just recently. Klaus Kleinfeld, who's the chief executive behind NEOM, he is basically a globalist through and through, Council on Foreign Relations and all of that. You'd research him. He said, Klaus Kleinfeld just recently told the audience at Gateway Golf Forum that the project was attracting massive interest from foreign investors. It's estimated to take between 30 and 50 years to complete, but the first phase ends due in 2025. They're basically already working on palaces for the king and the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and other royals. And NEOM will have its own judicial system, its own legislation designed to attract international investors. And basically, we know Saudi Arabia is an Islamic country, but they're looking at having a moderate form of Islam so that all other religions and all other people are welcome and will feel comfortable there. So it's not just going to be Muslims, you see. So they're touting it as, the biggest thing on the planet, city-wise, that's ever been. And they, want to create it in such a way as to take a lot of the restrictions that humans have today off. So, like, ideally, to automate a lot of mundane tasks that you don't want to do, allowing all new ways of digital connectivity at the same time and making a sense of community, all tied in with AI. So everything will be tied in with this artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
And you can imagine that cryptocurrency will be a part of it. And we know that Sophia the robot was made a citizen of Saudi
Mhm.
Arabia.
Yeah.
And it's also real interesting to note that just recently, the King Salman and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman attended a groundbreaking ceremony for a vast entertainment resort at the heart of an ambitious strategy to, sort of ease social restrictions in Saudi Arabia.
Mhm.
And Saudi Arabia recently opened its first cinema after nearly 4 decades ban on cinemas. So they're basically, trying to make Saudi Arabia this, what you were talking about before, this dystopian entertainment capital of the world where, everything will be connected to artificial intelligence and be on the cutting edge of things. So, and what's even more interesting is not just Saudi Arabia. See, they've got part of it'll be in Egypt and part of it's in Jordan as well. So this is massive area, and Egypt's already given whole bunch of land for it as well,
Mhm.
and a lot of money committed to it. And you've got people like Steven Schwartzman, who is a friend of Donald Trump, big time invested in this NEOM. And so I'm really, really, really closely watching what will happen with this. I'm not saying it's Mystery Babylon, everyone has different
Yeah.
opinions on it, but if it became what they're claiming it's going to be, then who knows? And perhaps Mohammed bin Salman could end up being the king of the South. Again, I'm only speculating, but looking at the fact that they're talking about the massive investment that's going into it, it's already looking to be, successful in attracting masses of international, businesses and investment in it. And I think it's extremely interesting to note that just recently a top Vatican official, um, the president of the Pontifical Council for Interreligious Dialogue, a guy called Jean-Louis Tauron, visited Saudi Arabia last month, and as a result, signed an accord with the Muslim World League, a government-backed body responsible for spreading the type of Islam that's in Saudi Arabia and that's in that whole Gulf region. And basically, they have confirmed that they will be having regular interreligious summits between the Vatican and this Muslim World League in
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
all the pieces are coming together. And you think, maybe it's not coincidence with this whole NEOM thing and that whole shift that the Vatican is getting deeply entrenched, perhaps in Saudi Arabia as well?
Yeah, it's all part of the same thing. To your point, and I was going to mention this a little while back. You said that NEOM was maybe going to be completed in 2030 or
Yeah,
35.
phase 1 in 2025, but there's, probably not the whole thing.
And so, you know what I think about this whole thing? I'll get a little bit of reverb on your end too. But what I think about this whole thing is we look around at the world as it is today, right? We just talked about the Met Gala and just the extravagant symbolism and how it almost appears as though we don't have much time. I
Yeah,
mean, a lot of people have been saying we don't have much time way back in 2012, but
yeah,
somehow we're still here today at 2018. And so who knows? Maybe it will go on for a lot longer. But I know just within the last year or two, people are starting to get they're feeling it deep in their spirit that things have just escalated to just such a rapid pace that it's hard to even comprehend. And so when I think about these mega cities or these projects from the elites, and they say that it's going to be done or complete in 2030 or 2040, you really wonder, like, okay, if they know that there's going to be global war and there's going to be famines, or maybe they know about the earthquakes and the way that the earth is reacting, why would they have these extravagant plans 10, 20, 30 years out? But I think this is where the occult has a false idea of a new age, right?
yeah,
So we talk about Jesus Christ and the millennial reign. They believe, if I'm correct, they believe that there'll be a millennial reign of their God, their Christ. And so I think they're preparing sort of their own millennial reign. So even though they know that there will be wars and things that disrupt the earth, they're still planning. They're still planning to be here. They're still planning to be in control. And maybe these mega cities, not just NEOM, but also had the Bill Gates investment in Arizona. He wants to build a smart city, but either they're planning for this millennial reign of the Antichrist, or two, that this is like their bunkers.
Well, I
um,
think we're moving into the age of Aquarius, don't
yeah,
forget, and, it's a moving target as to when that supposedly begins, but really what you're saying, that's what it is. The age of Aquarius, the peace and love and everything kind of age. That's what they think they're moving into.
yeah, yeah. So they, yeah, it may be a little bit confusing. I know it is for me, unless you think about how they think. Because people will say, "Oh, the elite just want to depopulate the earth, and there's going to be global war and nuclear war." People think there's going to be nuclear war to the point of destroying the whole earth. For them, I don't think, they're in control of those warheads, and there may be a small scale nuclear bombs that are set off, but I don't think they're intending to destroy the world. They just want enough that they're fully in control and in power. But yeah, with these cities and the age of Aquarius, as you mentioned, they're planning to be here, and they just want it set up just for them.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. And yeah, the thing is, they have their plans, but see, they can always make mistakes.
Yeah,
Things get out of control. Yes, they can create a crisis and a chaos that they believe they can bring their order out of. But, we know from the way the Bible, portrays the picture, it's not how they think it's going to be at all.
right.
They have their plan, but the plans of God have a completely different result than the plans of the occult elite.
Yeah, they're completely disillusioned.
Yeah, totally.
Um, one thing that's sort of funny about this, just how you mentioned that they make mistakes as well. I remember I did a video on this about Bitcoin and AI, and I know you want to touch a little bit on AI, and we did with Sophia and things of that nature. But one of my coworkers said that Satan is using people to do his bidding, and he's probably smacking himself upside the head, saying these stupid humans are not doing my will accordingly because they're making mistakes. There's spiritual war occurring all the time. But this AI technology is really putting a spin on this whole thing. So AI, although we call it artificial intelligence, it's artificial life. It's not life from God. It's life created by man. It has no blood, or as Exodus and Deuteronomy say, the blood is the life. It doesn't have blood, so it's not true life. Um, I've seen AI really just take storm across almost every facet of technology. And if it truly has some type of autonomous nature to it, I think the Antichrist system or the beast system is going to be using AI heavily because it will be doing the bidding of the Antichrist without the same type of mistakes that happen between humans who are in a battle between good and evil.
Yes.
Let's see here. But yeah, I think this is going to be one of the key things that the Antichrist system is going to use. Like in this video here, I forget the one technology that was threat metrics. Maybe it was in a different video, but threat metrics has some type of AI program, and they were going to use that sort of how we were talking about AC chain and how that all the other cryptocurrencies could be interchangeable with that, but that was the cornerstone to it all. Threat metrics was also a cornerstone AI program that was able to merge with all these other threat agency companies and basically build things via its AI program. But the AI can do things that humans cannot even think about doing, and I just see that as a huge opportunity for this Antichrist system.
Well, it brings into play the possibility of demonic entities taking control of the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely where it's headed. So hey, I just want to switch over to a different topic. I know we had in the title Israel and Iran and Syria, and particularly how we've had the false Korean peace. At least I'm thinking it's a false Korean peace. Did you happen to see my video just with my secular explanation of what I think was happening with China and Korea and maybe this peace process that's going on?
No, I haven't seen that one. I'll be perfectly honest, I haven't really focused a lot on that Korean situation of late. You've been so sort of focused on other things. So yeah, fill me in.
Yeah, and get your opinion on that, and also as well as Israel and Syria, some of the things going on there. But in this video, and I'll pull it up right here. What does China have to do with the North Korean peace? What I think is real interesting, and I didn't mention this in the video, so this would be new information for the subscribers. I'm going to pull up the article right now. Um, China and Russia, and really the BRICS nations in general, I mean, they know what's going on. They see the agenda of the United States. I mean, the United States steamrolled through the Middle East. They were putting their Patriot ballistic missile batteries all around Russia, cornering them in. War is on the horizon. And I know these world leaders like President Xi of China and Putin, they know what the US is doing. And so I think Russia has shown amazing restraint in not engaging because I'm pretty sure they know that that's what the US wants. The US is trying to trigger a reaction so that they can have an excuse to get a little bit more brazen with their military efforts, but they have been withholding as much as they can. And I think this is what happened with China and Korea and the US. In this video, I talk about how just a month before Kim announced this peace with South Korea, he had a meeting with President Xi of China,
Mm.
and he went there on a secret mystery train. And what some experts were saying was that President Xi does not trust Kim. Their relationship is sort of uh, tumultuous, or it has some turbidity to it. And he was really worried about Kim and Trump meeting because the two are so irrational. And so he had no idea what would come out of this meeting between them. And so he said, I have to talk with Kim. And what could have happened in this meeting between Kim and Trump is Trump could have walked out of the quote unquote private meeting and said that this man's irrational. We can't have diplomacy with him. And so, the only other option is military intervention. The guy's not going to give up his nuclear arms. Or Kim could agree to some type of deal that he inevitably would break because that's Kim's tradition. And so I think President Xi saw this and he's thinking, how can I head this off? How can I buy more time? And it was actually pretty ingenious, doing this peace move, because what these experts are saying is now that there's a possibility for peace and the Koreas do want peace. I mean, who wouldn't want peace between the Koreas? You don't want that threat on your border. He said that if there is a potential opportunity for peace and there's dialogues ongoing between the Koreas, and Trump comes in and meets with Kim, it would be very difficult for Trump to have any type of military intervention, right?
Mm,
Because South Korea would look at that and say,
yeah.
you're destroying our peace process.
Yeah.
Here, Kim has come to the table. We're making headway. And here comes Trump, just destroying everything. And so it really puts Trump in an interesting position because he essentially has to negotiate, or else he starts to affect his relationship with our allies in South Korea. But again, this all comes back to the fact that China and Russia and the BRICS nations, they are stalling as much as they can to prepare for something that I believe is inevitable, that there be some type of global or large scale war. And you wonder what type of pawns they're getting in place. And one of the things, I'll pull it up here on the screen. Um, you remember in the US that the Russians had a nuclear submarine in the Gulf of Mexico for weeks and we
Yep.
didn't know it?
Yep.
Yep. So here, this goes all the way back to 2012. If anyone didn't see this, we had a Russian attack submarine slip past U.S. Navy and patrolled the Gulf of Mexico undetected for weeks. And then I think at the very end of their tour, they surfaced and then headed on out, just saying, "Hey, we were here.
Mm,
Just to let you guys know, we have really good technology. This isn't going to be a war like it would be with Afghanistan,
yeah.
where we have the entire upper hand all the time. I mean, this is a very big foe." But I really do believe that they are holding off, but realize the inevitable. And who knows what type of pawns they're getting in place. I don't know if you have, I threw a whole lot at you just within the past couple minutes, but just wondering, I know you haven't looked at it too much, but what your thoughts are on the whole situation, or even if you want to spill into Syria and Russia and what's going on with Israel.
Yeah, I won't spend much on the Korean thing other than to say I believe that ultimately they don't want there to be, well, the elitists don't want there to be a separate North Korea. That's why there's talk of unity between the two Koreas. I think eventually Korea will come into another region when they bust up, up the world into regions, which has always been their plan. So North Korea has to fit in somewhere. And currently, with the kind of rogue regime, the way it's been acting, it can't do it. So in the end, yeah. What happened in that meetings and all that, I don't know, but I just see it as what I've been expecting all the way along, that North Korea will cease to exist as an individual entity at some point and be brought into a bigger region, and that is maybe what's going on behind the scenes. Also, talking about Russia, it's interesting when Putin was re-inaugurated recently, one of the things he spoke about was getting rid of the burden of the US dollar on Russian oil,
Yeah.
trading in oil. So Russia and China are basically looking at the yuan and the ruble and gold for oil deals and getting rid of the US dollar. So it's all a move towards the end of the US being the supreme, you know, um, supreme power of the world with its reserve currency status, because that just doesn't fit in with the picture, I think, of the new world order ultimately. So they're all moves towards that. And then, yeah, moving from there into the whole situation in the Middle East, which, man, we really could see war there. I mean, that's really close, I think.
Yeah.
To the potential for Ezekiel 38 and 39 fulfillment, and the destruction of Damascus as in Isaiah 17. We've got this move toward having the embassy in a couple of days' time moved to Jerusalem, and Hamas has come out and I don't know how Yah I don't know how to pronounce his name, Sinwar, who's the leader of Hamas, said that there'll be a riot next week planned for 14th, which is
Hmm.
Monday, the day the embassy's closed, and that will be open. Sorry, it will be decisive. He said we can't stop these protests. We're supporting them, even leading them, and the riots will trigger like a tiger running in all directions. He said. So you've kind of got that. You've with the embassy move, you've got the whole fact that there's been exchanges between Israel and Iran in Syria at the moment. and it's a real powder keg. And I don't know if you actually saw Assad was interviewed by a Greek newspaper recently, and what he said about the whole situation and the supposed chemical weapon attack. Did you actually see that?
I did not, but I'm pulling it up right now. You let me
Okay,
know if
Daily
this is
Mail,
it.
you should be able to find it.
Yeah, here. I think this is it here. Right here. This guy.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll have to watch this.
yeah. Well, just a little bit, a few notes of it. Assad said, "We don't have a chemical arsenal since we gave it up in 2013. The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons made investigations about this, and it's clear that we don't have them. Last month, at least 49 people were killed and dozens more injured in the alleged chemical weapons attack. That's been blamed on Assad, but Assad refused to accept responsibility for the attack, saying it's a farce, it's a play, it's very primitive play, just to attack the Syrian army. And he said, forget about the differences. Forget about the different factions and who is going to finance those factions. At the end of the day, they all work for one agenda, and those different players obey one master, the American master, he said. And interesting, he said, since Trump's campaign, the main agenda was against Russia, create a conflict with Russia, humiliate Russia, undermine Russia, and so on, he added. Fortunately, you have a wise leadership in Russia, and they know that the agenda of the deep state in the United States is to create a conflict. Now, I'm not backing Assad or saying
Right.
anything that the guy's a good guy or whatever, because I believe he'd be capable of launching chemical weapons if
Mhm.
it suited him, but I don't think he did. That's the
Yeah.
difference. I
Yeah.
don't believe Assad did it.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't really looked into Assad and his history, but I believe he has a dark history. In terms of doing some attacks on people that weren't favoring his regime. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think RT, even though it is Russian times, they had an interesting and it was almost comical or humorous part on this. Seems like, oh wow, every single time Assad is winning the war, he seems to kick himself in the rear and
Mm,
launch a chemical attack upon his own people. Why would he do that? I think the first time that we had the chemical weapons attack, his army was defeating the rebels in stride, and the same thing this second time around. His regime was gaining ground. There was actually a little bit more stability, and then all of a sudden, or actually, it was also on the heels of. Remember when Trump said that he was going to get out of Syria?
yes, that was last year's one. Yep.
Yep. So he said, we should pull out of Syria, and then all of a sudden, chemical weapons attack. Oh, we got to go in full force now.
Yeah.
So it's for us who are day in and day out looking at these things, it's comical to see how this is like child's play. It's just coming out of a book. They're not even really being that savvy anymore. They're really just showing their hand about how badly they want to instigate war so that they can just go in with their traditional warfare and try to take things over. I remember General Wesley Clark, who after 9/11 was talking about how we had the plan to take over the Middle East and all the countries, ending with
Yeah.
Iran.
Yep.
In that interview, and if a lot of people have seen it, but let's see, General Wesley Clark. Please,
But
I'll
just
just
while
pull up
you're
the
looking
video.
for it, don't forget that John Bolton had said he made a speech saying, "We'll see you in Tehran before 2019,"
Hmm.
which is like, whoa, uh, that's a pretty serious thing to be saying. So if there is a major war, you have to wonder who's been planning it really. But
Yeah,
at the same time, Iran has been lying about the nuclear weapons. I don't think there's any doubt about that, and they are advancing in the Middle East. Advancing their interests in Syria, etc. And so, boy, it's hard to know exactly the truth behind a lot of what's going on. But when you look at what's going on, you see war.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what General Wesley Clark said in his interview, specifically about terrorism, was that this insider told him that we really didn't know who did it. And I mean, we know who did it, right? Or we have
Yeah,
we have false flag assumption. But he said, we didn't know who did it. We don't know how to combat terrorism, but we have a great military and we know how to take down governments. We blamed it on someone, and we were able to use the full force of our military arm. And so I see a lot of that happening with regards to Syria, that we are just trying to instigate and instigate and instigate and push whatever country it may be, whether it's Syria or Russia, and try to get them to move, do something stupid so that we can use our military might to really get things going. But we want an excuse to get in there. And just as you said, everything that is on the horizon spells war. And we're just waiting. And, any multitude of black swan events can get this thing kicked off. And I am just amazed at how long it's held off, to be honest.
Yeah, well, because there's always the potential of nuclear exchanges, I think, there's always a bit more reticence to go with it, but the fact of the matter is it is getting closer. And you've got Israel. Yeah, well, there you go. Iran and Israel getting closer to a full-blown war, and I think that is exactly right. And in all directions, you've got, well, the Saudis and the others don't like Iran either. So you've got a complicated Middle East situation, and I do believe in Israel's right
Yep.
to retaliate and to defend themselves against Iran. But at what point does that become more than just a retaliation, and it becomes a pawn in the game of those that want to take Iran out and for further their own interests? This is where it gets tricky.
Yeah. We just pray for all the brothers and sisters that are there, because there's a lot of good people that are stuck in the middle of this, and
Yeah.
the elites are just playing. It's definitely a difficult situation. Actually, David Bass from Round Saturn's Eye, he's in Jerusalem again, so he's probably got some really interesting thoughts on what's happening there at the ground level. So we'll have to stay tuned on some of the videos he publishes. But yeah, lots of stuff on the horizon. We've got the whole Kushner Middle East peace thing that's going to break here soon. We got the embassy launching. We've got the Kim Trump talks. We've got all this tension between Israel and Iran. I mean, this is going to be a hot summer. And it seems that a lot of things break. Spring and the fall are, they tend to be high spiritual months surrounding the feast days. And yeah, I'll tell you what, this summer and especially the fall is, it's going to be interesting. But we've only got a couple more minutes left because I know we wanted to do this around an hour. Um, I just want to make everyone well aware of Tony's channel, A Minute to Midnight. Again, I've got the link to his channel in the YouTube description box. Again, I've been enlightened from a multitude of his interviews that he's done with people that are financial analysts talking about secular things, not to mention a lot of prophetic interviews. It's been a blessing to me. It's been edifying. But Tony, is there anything that you wanted to talk about or close on before we end the session?
I just want to remind people of Zechariah 12:2 and 3, where it says, "Behold, I'll make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, when they shall be in siege, both Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day I'll make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it." So just keep your eyes on Jerusalem, and it is a bit of a worry, I think, the involvement of the US in the peace deal. But God's in control ultimately.
Yep. Yeah,
Well,
we
thanks
already know
for
everything's
having me.
going to happen. It's been written.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on today, Mike, because I really do enjoy it. And we must, have you again on our show on A Minute to Midnight again soon as well.
Yeah, we've been talking too about having a bigger session. I know we've done you, me, and Joni, but we also wanted to do something either on your channel or my channel with us three plus Brooke. We'll have to
Yeah, I
set that
think
up
it'll be a
sometime.
great idea. Yep, love to do that.
Well, hey, I don't want to take up much more of your Saturday. I want to thank everyone else for joining in and hope you enjoyed the session. And again, go ahead and check out Tony's channel. Again, I really like a lot of the interviews he's done, and I think you will too. But thanks, Tony. It's been great as always.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. See you, everybody. All right. We're off.